We are having our first nice day in quite a bit. We went from a couple of 80-degree Fahrenheit days back down to like low 30s during the daytime and low 20s at night, which was not my favorite. It's about 10 a.m. now, which is about the time that the greenhouse equalizes temperature or gets warm enough for me to come out and uncover the plants after I've tucked them in for the night. I tuck them in on nights when it's going to get below freezing, particularly since I moved the peppers out. They're a little bit sensitive to that. They want it warmer. I started peppers, I think the end of February, maybe beginning of March. I had waited a couple weeks on my earliest starting time frames because the weather seemed to be really finicky, which was good because we then got a blizzard shortly thereafter, so not my favorite thing. But it's where I live. The peppers don't really want to get below 40 degrees, anything lower than that, and they kind of throw a fit. They stunt a bit. But getting them out of my basement, where we were rapidly crowding my shelf space, in here was really helpful, and I was pretty confident with the geothermal tubing and the frost fabric at night that I could pull them through. And so far so good. We'll have to watch them over the season to see how they do. But today I uncovered the plants again. I think I'll have to keep doing that through Tuesday this week. And it looks like Wednesday I might be able to prepare the outside back bed. That's the one that gets sun later in the day. So it's where I put my vegetables that prefer a lower temperature. They'll still get plenty of sun to grow, but they won't be baked like the other garden beds. We've had a change in putting the greenhouse up, obviously, so that changes how the sun will fall on the main garden bed that's positioned just west of here. So I've got different microclimates happening. I've got outside garden beds on the east side of the greenhouse that are going to get sun earlier, but for only about the first part of the day. So less than 6 hours of sun. The greenhouse will get a good amount of sunlight throughout the day, particularly now that I removed that maple tree, which might cause its own problems. We'll find out. But the garden beds to the west, that also changes how the sun falls on them. They're still also going to get between 6 to 8 hours, likely 8, of sun, which is absolutely plenty for all of the fruity and veggies that I'm looking for. But I get to take advantage of microclimates to try to grow things like cabbages, fennel, carrots, things that like colder temperatures. Kohlrabi is another good one. We really like that one. And then we found out this past winter we really like bok choy. I had a lot of bok choy in the greenhouse over the winter, and things that were not decimated by the cabbage moths that I brought in with it were really tasty. And I enjoyed being able to walk out in the middle of winter, get a fresh salad bowl size container of bok choys and cook those with dinner. It was really nice. I have shut off the geothermal tubing. This is not anything fancy. It's not a purchased system. I read about the principles of what geothermal is. For my region, it seemed like a really good solution. I'm zone 4, so I can get down to -30s at night, and that's pretty low. So my only goal during the winter was to keep things above freezing, so above a hard freeze of 28. I found out that that works really well on the coldest of nights. I put greenhouse poly on top of the frost fabric. The only trade-off there is that I need to be home and available to uncover them in the morning, or somebody does. My spouse was nice enough to do that for me several mornings. But by creating that greenhouse within a greenhouse in here, the frost fabric reduces your light coming through, which is already slightly reduced by the polycarbonate. But the trade-off is that it holds I think it's 8 to 10 degrees more heat in the garden bed. And then the poly on top of that, the greenhouse poly, that was 6 mil poly. It's used just traditionally for your poly tunnels. Putting that on top helped retain that, but doesn't have the breathability of the frost fabric. So the trade-off is when the daytime temps rise about 10 a.m. in the winter. I have lower light in the winter anyway, but about 10 a.m. it starts to equalize and warm up in here. And if I leave the poly on top of the frost fabric, the trade-off is I might bake my plants, which is a weird problem to have in the winter. So that was really effective, really helpful. But I'd mentioned in previous videos that my frost came on rather unexpectedly, which I shouldn't have been unexpecting that, but I shouldn't have been surprised by that. But here we are. We spent a long time constructing this, and by the time I got everything up and in here, it went from nice fall weather to winter. And I basically shoved as much in here as I could just to get it under cover, including my bistro table for outside, which was probably not necessary, but I was like, oh, maybe I'll want to sit at that. Well, it's difficult to sit at if my space is covered in stuff I'd shoved in here. So we are going to tidy up the monstrosity that is happening in this corner here. I purchased some bendable tubing, so I'm hoping to tuck that under the table, and then I want to shorten this pipe a little bit, and probably have it extend only to here. Only to here, so it's between windows. The hope is that in winter, my theory after having a winter with this, what I'm looking at doing next time is putting greenhouse poly on the interior as well. So at the end of the garden beds, I would have greenhouse poly going all the way up, and I would essentially have greenhouse poly, or my fancy sheet system that I'd been using, over the door to reduce breezes. And then I would just be trying to maintain a temperature in this portion of the greenhouse instead of also the seating area. So it's going to get up to about 45 degrees. Last night our low was 23 degrees Fahrenheit, and that was in the wee hours of this morning, so like 5 or 6 a.m., which means it's going to get probably in the 60s to 80s in here. I did engage all of the windows to auto open today. Our forecasted gusts are going to be about 15 miles per hour, which is not bad. They'll be fine. It's a fairly calm day for my region, so that's pretty nice. Because I'm easily distracted, I made a list of chores that I wanted to get done this weekend. I put them on a chalkboard that we have up in our kitchen, and that just really helps communicate what I'm hoping to accomplish. It also serves as a visual reminder that sometimes I overload my list, and reasonable expectations are really important. My spouse is going to help with some of the things outside today, which I appreciate. Thanks, husband. And I'm going to work on the things that are more finicky. In order to work in this space, I first need to clean out some of the debris I've left myself. I made some progress on that in a previous video. Today we're going to try and clean it out the rest of the way so it's more usable and ready for the season. I mentioned I'm really distractible, right? But this is useful, I swear. I have rosemary that is very dead. But I can still throw this in cooking, and I have it in this pot and I have it in the corner of this bed. The one in the bed I'm hoping will come back. We'll find out. I don't know. And essentially what I'm going to do is toss them in this little Tupperware container until I can find a little glass jar inside. We just moved that around, so I'd find those. But harvesting this, then I can empty the pot. I've been tossing the spent pots and plants in the bucket. I'm going to add them to my compost pile, and then I'm going to have to clean out all the containers. Cleaning out the containers was part of cleaning up the west side of the greenhouse. I have more containers inside that also need to be cleaned up. They're going to wait their turn. This first. These have already been dried out just by sitting in the greenhouse. So I'm just going to pick them off the plant here and put them in the container. If you're at all unsure if there's moisture in your herbs or spice or whatever you're trying to save, you can lay it out to dry first. Once you close it in a container, it would be really susceptible to molding, which means you wouldn't want to put that on your food. So we're going to take these off, knowing that they're dry. Oh, that smells so good. But using this in my cooking is really satisfying. We've been increasing the number of meals we're able to make with things from the garden, which has been really nice. So I had never heard of mini roses. I started working as a cashier at the greenhouse local to me part-time last season, which was really, it was a nice way to meet other people that also have a plant problem or a solution, depends on how you look at it. But I found these cute little mini roses. So I've got this guy. That's the one in the garden bed. There was a peach colored one I have in a pot up there. That little terracotta one. I am not sure if they made that through the winter. We'll see, because I had it sitting on that garden bench there and didn't really pamper it. I'm not sure if it's going to pull through or not. If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, I've learned a lesson about leaving pots on the metal potting bench in the greenhouse. Probably. Realistically, I'll probably do it again. You are what you are. These are little coneflower plants. I also had these in containers in the greenhouse on the shelf, my very fancy pallet shelf. And I actually I didn't think these were going to make it, but they've got new life. They are very excited to be here. I'm probably going to put these at the different corners of the greenhouse. I planted some allium seeds in the winter, and we'll see if those come up. I've been doing a lot of purples, yellows, whites, blues when I can, so like borage is a really nice blue color, and I like that color scheme for flowers in the garden, but I also like a really nice coral or a salmon. So there's some intensity happening with the different color pops. I like that they're a bit of a surprise and they're a little bit of contrast compared to the color scheme that I've chosen as the main grouping. So these will go outside into the main landscaping area, but not yet. All right, I've gotten my rosemary plant denuded of vegetation. We'll be able to use this in cooking. It's not very much. I'm definitely going to have to get more rosemary starts. For how finicky starting rosemary can be, you would normally start at about the same time you start your tomatoes or your peppers for your region. You can look that up on a generalized website, Farmer's Almanac's pretty good. You put in your zip code, it gives you your approximate start dates. Often your seed packet will tell you, it says, I think usually like 10 to 12 weeks for rosemary before your last frost date, and it's an estimated last frost date. You should always check your forecast to make sure that it is on track. My last frost date is coming up May 6th. Today is April 23rd. We're getting there. I am hoping to start my cold season things outside here soon. I'll have to double check my forecast. I can put things out when it'll get down to like 28, and I'll put them at the frost fabric that I've been using in the greenhouse over that bed instead. I'm getting distracted again. We're not there yet. Focus. Back to cleaning hot pots. All right, so I moved the window boxes there that were still are holding saffron over so that they're out of the walkway. I'm going to leave that play sand there until I decide what I'm doing as a working space for flooring over there. I've got my makeshift cloches, so little cut off milk jugs and vinegar jugs over here. The ones that come for your seed starting flats are over here. I've got some horseradish that may or may not return to life there. I've been reluctant to plant it in an in-ground spot because once it's there, it's there. I haven't decided what to do with it. If it does come back, I'll probably put it in a movable container so that I have some control over that. So I keep having to duck around this because this is not very, I mean, it is bendable, but not at the kind of angles I need. So I cleared out all the pots that are probably not going to come back, and then I left the ones that I'm really hoping will. This catmint here is coming back. That one's doing all right. I really enjoy this in like sleepy time tea. I had the remainder of these as my keep my energy up snack. I had the idea when I strung this cable all the way across that I would hang the tools that I use most frequently up here. So I have this that gets used to adjust the doors. There's a plastic piece of the runner that just keeps coming loose, and that's really inconvenient. Not my favorite feature. Similarly, I have the little bolt screwing thing because with the wind, these sorts of things come loose occasionally, and so being able to have that handy to tighten it's really nice. Twine I'll be using, by having it here I can just pull it down. Same with this vegetable tape. Here's my little knife. I've got scissors over by the bench because I was using them. These I need to put in a different spot, and I need a better home for those. At the moment, this is geothermal going in, so that's pulling from the air all the way across the greenhouse. I like how that circulates when it's pulling from there. That's great. I do want to shorten that up a bit so it's maybe like halfway across. I want it to go up and down under the bench on top of that fan so it's not all angled like that. I got an elbow joint to the outlet air push down across into the garden area, so that is good. I've got potting mix in here, watering cans stored up there, burlap that I've been using as a cover, the little kneeling pad. And then I've got shade cloth, empty sandbags that I need to fill with sand that I'll use for frost fabric and things like that outside in the greenhouse. And then I just have some old flat stackable containers. I didn't like them stacked because the bottom container ends up waterlogged and the top container ends up way too dry. So I'll use them probably on their own individually instead of stacking them. So less efficient, but way better at being able to control the moisture values. I do want to figure out something with this. I don't love how this is situated. This is another one of those things that I was lucky to figure out how to connect things, or I felt lucky. Something in my brain, every time I start reading about how you do electrical stuff, just sort of turns over like a turtle and just sits there like, ew. So I will probably find someone more skilled than me to figure that out. Hopefully this summer.
Critical failure.
I don't know. Time is fluid. We'll find out. So now that I have space to work under the potting bench, I'm going to try to carefully shift that electronic setup I just showed you and work with the tubing that I picked up at a local box store. I've got a couple 4-inch pipe or tubing couplers that I'll use to go with that. And I'm going to try and knock that task out too, so I don't have to keep ducking around that tubing. In order to get the tubing to fit beside the table, I had to scooch it over to the east a bit. Good news is it will fit. I'm trying to decide if I, at some point, want to raise the table by putting it on like cinder block or stone so it doesn't sink into the earth, because right now it's sinking in about 1 inch or 2, which isn't surprising because it is just a dirt floor over there. But in order to guide the tubing the direction I want it to, I need to go find appropriate ties to secure it to the bench and then the roof. So I'm going to go on a small adventure to find the tools I need. I'll try again. Alright, items obtained. I have florist wire. Any craft store, really easy to get. I debated using twine, but because it's a natural fiber, it will break down over time. It's not really what I'm looking for. I debated using black electrical tape because that would blend in, but I don't really want the sticky on what I need to adhere it to. I think that would also lose its elasticity over time and just not hold the tubing. So we're going to roll with this. I also got the step stool because I am not tall enough. Trying again. All right. So I have successfully removed, is that a cabbage moth? I think there's a cabbage moth. No me gusta. I've successfully removed the pots that were spent, removed the debris from that. I've got those stacked out there to clean, which is not on my task list today. Another day. I fixed to the tubing so it's not bonking me in the head all the time, which is uber nice. Because while it was a good temporary fix, it was absolutely a temporary fix the way it was. So it's nice to have it this way, a little more functional, a little more tidy. I like that I was able to put up those things there. When I find my clothespins, I will attach my gloves so they're also dangling from there. I do have 2 pair out usually because from one day to the next, the first pair is still like damp. So putting on the second pair is helpful. My last task for the greenhouse side is fixing that bench. Yeah. camera died partway through the time lapse, which was a good reminder for me to go inside and have a snack. Charged the phone for a bit. We're back outside. I did finish my task. Yay! And I brought eggplants up from in the basement. I have my seed starting shelf that I've been using for years for seed starting downstairs. The downside is I changed my system. I added a greenhouse, which is great, except that I forget to check on the seedlings in the basement because they're out of the way. So it's a good reminder that whenever you change up what you normally do, you're going to have to pay attention to the things that might get dropped. In this situation, it was some of the seedlings on the shelf downstairs. So my eggplants that survived are looking a little ragged. I'm going to bring them out here, put them with little bitty hats on them, and coax them through the rest of the way. But I have successfully completed my task. I also hung up my cute little plaque up there. The workstation here is much more clear. This is going to go out by my other containers that need to be cleaned. I like the tools hanging. I like that I can hang things to dry here if I want to. That's going to come back inside with me though. And then I have my bench complete. I have it raised so that I can store my little makeshift cloches there. I've got some frost fabric there. And this back is officially connected and no longer leaning against the greenhouse, which is good news. Seedlings are pretty happy. And now I'm going to reward myself. And how else would you reward a gardener at the end of their task list than by, I don't know, doing some planting? So I potted up the German chamomile. I labeled each container mostly because I'm giving some to friends. The amaranth I potted up because that's going to be moving outside, but it needs some space to get bigger. Then I've got African daisy, and then I've got my two different types of hollyhock. These I'm not sure where I'm putting them, and they needed some space to grow. So those are going to hang out in this size container. I'm going to go get some seed trays, like this, so I can water those in for the evening, and then I think it will be time to cover up the plants for the night. Thanks for coming along with me while I was staying on task today and getting all my stuff done. Catch you next time. We forgot to check on John the Toad. He's been there. Hanging out. Look at his little throat move. He's so cute. Hi, John. I learned that John the Toad is a good indicator of how moist my soil is because I watered in here yesterday and he began sunning himself on the rock. Today he's hunkered back down, but it's getting too cold and too late in the evening, so I'll water tomorrow. Hang in there, little buddy. You're doing great.